Okay. I just wanted to, a lot of you have come to and met with me to go over your projects, and I've given you some ideas on what kind of pages should be there, your login pages, profile pages, home pages, search pages, and so on and so forth. And what kind of features you might have in there, what kind of database you might use, and how you would interact with the with APIs. But I just wanted to record it, make sure that we're all on the same page, and that what things are in common across all the projects. Okay, some of you do not fall into the following description, but I believe most of you do, right? So if you don't fall in this category, please see me, and or we'll probably have spoken already and agreed upon this. But this is where I believe most of the projects fall into this category that I'm going to explain, right? And I just wanted to record it and have a video so you can come back to it and make sure that we all have the same expectations. Okay, right? So. I've said repeatedly that there should be a portion of your project that should be accessible to anybody, regardless of whether they logged in or not. Okay, so here's your user, and your user without logging in, they should be able to go in and hit some kind of home page. Right, so this is your home page, right, without logging in, and in that home page, you might display things that should be public, or things that anybody should be able to see. Okay? Perhaps the latest content that has been generated by various users, probably public content that have been generated. Right? Maybe as a feed, just as a list of content, maybe listed in inverse date from when they were created. So the latest would be perhaps at the top, and then older content would be towards the bottom. And this might be a very a summary or title of things that people have been creating. Okay, movies they've liked, songs, recipes, a sports team, whatever it is. Okay, that people have liked, people have created content for, will be perhaps listed here. Again, in reverse order of creation. So the latest content would be towards the top. Maybe at the top, maybe you have some images, maybe in a rotation, maybe an image rotator that represents some kind of content, again created by users. Maybe some people like a carousel. Maybe this could be auto updating, right? Reading content as people add content to the page. So this could be automatically updating. And then up here, perhaps a common set of links, one to go from the home page, one to go to the profile, maybe a link to searches, or even there could be a search bar here, perhaps. Maybe a search bar here. Okay. And then obviously the home page, the profile, and the search perhaps could appear in all pages. The profile would take you to that user's profile if they're logged in. If they're not logged in, they would be asked to log in to see their profile. If they click on a hyperlink of some content, they might go to the details page of that particular content. So there would be a details page. Details page for that particular content. Yes, again, without having to log in. If they click on the line or this content, right, they click on some link and they go to the details page for that content. Here you might have images or carousels, maybe some details about that content. Right? This content, typically, most of you, I believe, are gathering this information from a third-party API, right? Whether it's Yelp or Yumly or Google or whatever, right? So a lot of you are going to a third-party cloud service out there, right? and retrieving most of the data from the cloud, some of it from the database, right? So presumably this is the database here, and you have the ID of that content stored in the database, and so here's content. So you have some content, and the couple of fields that you might have here are the ID of the content, maybe a title, right? Some very small description, maybe a little description, maybe a thumbnail about that content. But most of the content would live in the in the cloud, and you would use the ID to retrieve most of the descriptions, right? Most of the data from the cloud. Yes, you would store here locally in your local database, enough information to perhaps generate a list of that content, summary information, so you don't have to go and retrieve all this data from the remote service. This summary information and images and thumbnails could be local in a local database, but if you want the details, you have the ID to go fetch the rest of the content from the third-party API. Make sense? Right? All right. What else you might have here for that particular content? Again, this could be whatever, right? It could be a sports team. It could be a movie, a song. It could be a recipe, whatever, right? You might a lot of you are adding some social networking features, such as people being able to like this content, or maybe provide some ratings, or maybe provide some reviews about that content, right? You can have a person be able to create their own content, so maybe it has its own text area where you can enter a comment about this, right, with your button to create the comments. Now, obviously, if you try to like something, or if you try to create a comment, I need to know who you are, right? So if you try to like, then you will be directed to some login page, right? That forces you to log in. Or if you try to comment, right, you need to log in. If you log in here in the content, this will bring you back to this page so you can actually create the comment, right? Or if you type in the comment, you create this, right? If you click on create, perhaps this might bring you to your profile, right? Either one of these might bring you to the profile, to your profile page. So you have a profile. Okay. In your profile, you might have information about yourself, plus all the various things that you have interacted, all data that is pertaining to you, things that you have liked. I've liked that, so maybe you have likes, all your likes listed here. Yes? Right? Obviously now I know who you are, so I can enter in my database. From these links, I should be able to go back to the details page, right? Things that I've liked. Or if I've created comments, I might have here my list of comments, again, listed here, so that if I click on this, I also can go back to the details. Yes? Right? I should be able maybe to remove the like. I should be able to blow away my comment. Sorry. I should be able to remove my comment, or maybe edit my comment, update my comment. Yes? I should be able to unlike. Right? I should be able to change my rating. Again, if I'm putting a rating, also I need to log in to know who you are if I'm not logged in already. Yes? Everyone okay? What else? If I search, right? If I click on search, either I type my search string here, or I click on the search button, I'll be redirected to some search page. Right, the search page. So here's my search, where perhaps at the top I have my search bar, and I have intermediary search results. Yes, so these are search results. Here's my search string, and these are the matches, right, that match my search string. If I click on any one of these, it might be, if I click on the search, right, I go here to my search or search results, If I click on any one of these, it takes me to the details page. Yes? Takes me to the details page. So again, here I haven't logged in yet, right? So I can search all I want. Only when I need to, right, remember something about you, I need to know who you are, right? But as far as everything's concerned, I could go everywhere, right? If I click on somebody's username, because these were created by perhaps other users, right, that were commenting on the same item, right, I will be redirected to their profile page. So there's lots of profile pages. So, you know, we all have our own profile. So if I click on the user, it takes me to their profile, right? And they have their likes, they have their comments, they have their everything, right? Their ratings. I have suggested that you also should be able to like a person, right, or follow a person, right? So here you might have not only comments and likes, you might have following, you know, the users that you're following. Perhaps a list of people that are following you, right? So this is your following, and you might have followers. And this allows you to navigate to their profile, correct? Right. So yeah, so these I think these are the basic types of pages that I've suggested that we've come up with. You know, home, details, login, search results, profiles, and the various relationships between profiles, right, from different users. The database that might support this might look something like this, right? You might have a user table, right? A user table that is related to your content, whatever it is. So here's your content, and in your content, again, content might be sports teams, movies, recipes, you know, places you want to visit, airline reservations, hotel rentals, apartments, whatever. I don't know, whatever content it is, right? And then you might have several association tables, right, that relate, saying that relating users to the content, right? So that user likes that content, yes, right? That user likes that movie, or that user likes that recipe, or whatever, right? Other things you might have, you know, not only likes, but you might have other things like, you know, comments, right? This user commented on that content. This user is following that other user, right? This user is following that other user, right? What else? Yeah, all sorts of associations, right? All sorts of associations. Here in the comment again, the content. Sorry, the content. Mostly what you're storing here is a couple of attributes about the content, not everything. You're not going to download all the content from the database from a third-party tool and then replicate the data here, right? What you want to do is maybe store an ID, maybe some title, maybe a small description, short description, maybe a thumbnail. Again, enough to represent the content locally, you know, as list, right? In a summary, as a summary. Okay, and you can use that ID again to go back to the API and retrieve the details, you know, in a details page. Correct? I think this is what I have discussed more or less the layout of the website. That, you know, the actual layout, right? The look and feel will be whatever you want, right? Obviously, that's right. Obviously, it doesn't have to be laid out this way. I hope you make it look stunning, right? For whatever content it is that you're working on, right? Each one of you seems to have a unique type of content. That's what changes, right? The actual content. But you know, the basic idea of searching, details, profiles, home pages, you know, and relationship between all of these, it's should be fairly common amongst all of you. Okay, does that make sense? Now, here, when I first come in, notice that I'm coming in without logging in. some of your solutions, some of your problems might force me to log in. Okay, and there's a couple of you that that have asked me, this is sensitive information. I don't want to show anything out there unless you actually log in. And those few of you have said yes, okay, right, I'll make an exception. And if it warrants that your particular application that you should force someone to log in before looking at anything, that's okay, right? If you've come to me and we've agreed on it, then that's fine. Okay. But most of you, I would expect that I should be able to access most of the content without having to log in. All right. Also, notice we have no registration page anywhere, right? So my expectation is that if you are hosting this on our computers, the .NET domain, okay, you should not allow anybody to register. You will create 5 or 10 different users. You will share those usernames and passwords with us, yes, and then we'll use those to test your application. If you're hosting this elsewhere, if you're hosting this on OpenShift or Google App Engine or something else, right? It's your domain. You're free to do whatever you want, right? If you want to allow people to register, you're free to do whatever you want. But if it's on our machines, the .NET servers, right? Please do not allow people to register. Okay. If anybody's going to create content, you always have to force them to log in. All right. Again, if you're out in if you're on your own server, then obviously you have more flexibility. Okay. Make sense? Any questions? Does this make sense? I believe this is what we have agreed with most of the teams. Well, with most of the students. All right. Documentation. The way I get to this homepage from your homepage. So you have your CCIS homepage. There should be a link to the project from your homepage. I should be able to come in here. Okay, or your login page. If we have agreed on that. Also from here, there should be a documentation, a project documentation link. Yes, where you should document all the various features of your application, right? If you have used, what tables you used, okay, and you should, describe the schema of your database. Right? These are the tables that I use. These are the fields. These are the data types. A paragraph or two explaining each one of the tables. How are you using it? Okay, how is it being how is it being updated or inserted or whatnot, what they mean, especially the relationship tables, the association tables, what things relates to what. Okay. You should describe also the various features, right? The various APIs that you're using, right? When you do a search, what happens? Well, I go to Google to do geocoding. I go to Yelp to search for a particular restaurant, right? So explain perhaps one page of documentation for each API. Okay. Now the actual documentation, how detailed should you be in your documentation? Well, hopefully you've been creating all experiments based on focused on that you're going to be using what you learn from the experiments directly into the project. Yes. So in the documentation, you should have a very high level description, very high level documentation, right? That then sends you off or links to your experiments. If you want to know more about the details of how I implemented this, right? Well, that's very well documented in this experiment. Okay, and you have a link off to the experiment. And in the experiment, then you can be much more verbose, right? And say, well, this is an example call to the API. This is the JSON that I'm receiving, and this is how I'm rendering it. Okay, and you have 3, 4, 5 experiments, documenting that particular feature. Yes, but in the project documentation, you should have a very high level documentation on how that particular feature is relevant and how it interacts with the rest of the application. That makes sense? Right. So yeah, so your documentation of the project should not be, here's the API and these are the calls and whatnot. That should be documented elsewhere in your experiments. That makes sense? Right. So again, so in the project documentation, high level documentation, the architecture of the overall architecture of the application. Here's a UI. These are the cloud-based APIs that I'm using. There's a database, right? Then the schema of the database, the various APIs. One page per API, right? Linking to the various experiments. Right? How to use that particular feature. A map of your application, right? Of the various pages and how they interact. Okay. Make sense? All right. All right.